So the growing number of New Yorkers who say they actually support legalizing same-sex marriage could perhaps be attributed to the groundswell of public support from very high-profile politicians and celebrities, as well as the public backing from organized labor. Among the unions that have come out in support of passage of a gay marriage bill in Albany is the United Federation of Teachers. We're joined by UFT President Michael Mulgrew. He's in New York City. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Liz, for having me on.
It's great to see you. So you participated this week, your union participated in a public press conference proclaiming support for same-sex marriage. This isn't something that I've seen before. I've talked to a couple of other labor leaders, including the Teamsters Greg Floyd, about this. Why is it now that unions are deciding to get behind this?
Actually, the UFT has been behind this for, we passed a resolution recently, but it is something that we've been behind for quite some time. Two adults who care for each other should have a right to make choices and have those supported by our society and through the legal means, because that's really what should be happening. And it's pretty clear to us as teachers that whether it's now or in the near future, this is going to happen, and it should happen. And we're, 20 years from now, this is one thing I'm sure of, 20 years from now, teachers will be in classrooms on this issue saying, can you believe that 20 years ago this was the case? And it's just something that the union, the delegate assembly voted on this unanimously. This is something we believe in very strongly.
You know, though, I think it's particularly for teachers, it's a sensitive issue for those who are on the other side, because they're worried that teachers are going to somehow become advocates in the classroom, and they're going to be teaching young children about social issues that I think some parents find not to have a place in the classroom. I mean, do you think that you're sending that kind of message?
No. In terms of social issues and what is being taught inside of a classroom, that is something teachers have to be very careful, and they are very careful. We work off of what is given to us in curriculums and what our frameworks are for working inside of a classroom. And those are the things that we do. As mores change in society, those curriculums also change. The idea that everyone has a right to vote. Well, in 1900, that would be considered very controversial to teach that inside of a classroom. But now, it's just part of the common everyday curriculum. But just think about that. In 1900, if a teacher actually taught that in a classroom, they would have been reprimanded, and that's the danger, that's the fear that you just brought forth. But it changes as society changes. But right now, teachers are always very careful about this.
Yeah, also in terms of labor organizations getting involved from a political standpoint, it is in some way a counterweight to the state conservative party, which of course has drawn a line in the sand and said no candidate who votes yes on same-sex marriage or who professes support for legalization of same-sex marriage can run on our ballot line, row C. Unions provide an enormous amount of support to candidates, but are you going to be making this a litmus test similarly to the Conservative Party to try and out-battle them, if you will, for people in the Senate?
I don't believe that you try to intimidate people into changing their minds. I don't believe that's a good way for government to work, because then you're saying that if I have the ability to create leverage, and if you do not believe in what I'm trying to do, but because I have leverage on you, you do this or else, I think that leads to bad government, and that is not something that we would be doing. But it's more about talking to people, talking about their constituents. Society is changing, and the ideas should be open for debate and discussion. And I think the idea of those strong-arm tactics really just does a disservice to government.
Well, because, you could argue also labor unions don't by themselves control a ballot line. However, they do actually contribute to a party. The Working Families Party actually is made up of a number of labor unions, and they've got a ballot line. But they also vote on who to endorse. I mean, do you imagine that this issue would come up in endorsement discussions in the future for them?
Could it come up in an endorsement discussion? I'm sure it could. I know my position would be, what was the discussion like? What were their real concerns? Which way did they go? I think you have to put all of that on the table. But on certain you know, making it about one specific issue. It could be in some cases, but you really have to be careful about doing things like that, because really, I do believe it does lead to bad government.
So while you're here, I actually also want to talk to you about this teacher evaluation fight that's going on. The NYSET, which of course is the parent organization for the teachers union, is threatening to sue over the teacher evaluation system that was approved by the Board of Regents. You are an affiliate of NYSET's. Do you believe that the union should sue?
Well, the guidelines that were passed for implementation of the evaluation system by the Board of Regents, when I believe there was an overstep when they changed the second 20% of the test of the student achievement piece. The law says that it's 20% should be standardized test score growth, and 20% should be something other than standardized test score growth that shows student achievement. So that word "other," I believe there was an overreach, but that's a decision that we will make as a state union. What I think NYSET's concern here, and rightfully so, is, you know, we worked very hard and supported and pushed forward this evaluation legislation last year. We want an evaluation system that will help teachers develop from their beginning of their career to their end of their career. And also, we want an evaluation system that will not push New York State to become a test prep education system, when we know that actually harms children and doesn't lead to real acquired learning. And that's really what our struggle is right now.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems that every time you turn around, right, the teachers had a difficult year this year, and right now you're in contract negotiations with the city. Well, you lost $1.3 billion overall in state aid for education, for example, and now we're having a discussion about pension reform, the creation of a sixth tier. The city says that they are expecting that anything that the state does will also include the 5 boroughs. Are you concerned about that, and is it coming up in contract negotiations downstate?
Well, as you could imagine, conversations between myself and my union and the city aren't going so well.
Yeah.
But
I heard that. I think I heard that.
You heard that, huh?
Yeah, I did.
We're trying to figure out if we can agree on coffee time at this moment. But in terms of pension, look, 2 years ago, my union, the United Federation of Teachers, we did it. A pension modification, which is saving the city of New York recurring over $100 million a year, and those are their numbers. And the minute we did it, they thanked us and then have never brought it up again. So these are things that have always been done through negotiations. When people say that unions went up in the middle of the night, all I know is that every pension change that we have had, we went with the city of New York and supported it together, and that's why it went through the legislation. And if someone wants to try to circumvent that, if the mayor wants to circumvent that, well, that's another way of saying that we have bad labor relations with this administration. The unions have always, we have always been willing to sit, to discuss, to help on problems, tough economic times. You know, in the last economic crisis for New York City, it was the unions who bailed it out. We've always been willing to do that, and we will continue to be willing to do that. But for people to say that do it or else I'm going to pass legislation, well, we have a right to have our voice heard in that discussion also.
Okay. Well, we'll be keeping tabs on that whole discussion regarding pension reform. Until then, I want to thank you very much, UFT President Mike Mulgrew. It's good to see you. Thanks.
Nice to see you. Take care.